I have a slight obsession with film, so it's amazing to be here in the ritzy cinema in Brixton. And it gives me an excuse to talk about a film I saw recently by the Coen brothers, an old classic. It's called No Country for Old Men. There's a drug deal that goes wrong in the desert, and there's a big gunfight and everyone's left for dead. And the next day, local guy Josh Brolin is out hunting and he stumbles across the scene. And he finds there a suitcase stuffed with $2 million worth of cash. So he looks at it, he thinks for a minute, then he puts it in the back of his truck and goes home. And he spends the rest of the film trying to escape from Hitman, the actor Javier Bardem, one of the most terrifying characters ever to grace the screen. So Josh Brolin finds the very thing he's been looking for all his life, a ton of cash. But in the process, spoiler alert, sorry to spoil the film, in the process, he loses everything else that has been important to him. His home, his work, his wife, his freedom, and eventually his very life. The film is a classic morality tale, and it raises all the big questions. What are you searching for? What would you do to get it? Is it really worth it? And are there any moral boundaries? If you speak about morality today, you get a fascinating mix of views. On the one hand, we don't like to judge or interfere. We value diversity. In Britain, especially, there's a great emphasis on the virtue of tolerance. Live and let live. We want to respect people's freedom. On the other hand, I think most people would say that we do need some kind of moral code, some kind of shared values. It's not enough just to say, do whatever you want. Some things are just wrong. So there is a kind of tension between freedom and morality. I see this every day. I spend most of my time working with university students, and very often I'm getting into conversations with them about which direction they're going in. And most of the time, I wouldn't dream of pushing them one way or the other. Maybe I will pray with them, maybe I'll give them some gentle advice, but they need to find their own way. Every person is unique. But sometimes they are asking a moral question. Is this right? Is this wrong? And sometimes I do step in to give some stronger advice. I'm not trying to impose anything on them. I'm just trying to be honest about what's right or what's wrong. We can't make any good decisions if we don't have at least some moral guidelines to help us. Christians believe in freedom. They also believe in an objective morality. Not everything is relative. There are some fundamental human values that we all have in common. Why? Because we all share a common humanity, and some things help us to live a good life. They lead to our genuine fulfillment, and other things will damage that. It's a good thing, for example, to care for the sick, to tell the truth, to honor your parents, to do an honest day's work. It's wrong, for example, to kill an innocent person, to steal, to betray your husband or wife, to exploit the vulnerable. Now, of course, we can argue about the exact details, but Christians believe that there is a core set of moral values that have been held by most people in most societies. They're expressed, for example, in the 10 Commandments of the Jewish Christian tradition and in many other similar moral codes. If a society loses touch with these fundamental values, it begins to fall apart. You can see this in that classic novel, Lord of the Flies. A group of boys get stranded on a desert island. They try to govern themselves. Things seem to be going well, but eventually everything falls apart and it descends into chaos and violence simply because they didn't have any clear moral boundaries. Most of us are struggling to live a good life. We're not sure what we would do if we found that suitcase in the desert stuffed with $2 million worth of cash. We're not sure how to live many of our day-to-day moral choices. Life is messy and complicated. But knowing that there are some moral guidelines is actually a huge gift rather than a burden. And trying to follow them is actually part of what sets us free.